He fired me from the company we built together, and just one day later, he lost everything he worked for. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Corbin Hale. 3 years ago, I started a freight and logistics company in Denver with a man I trusted like a brother, Leland Mercer. We didn't come from money. We didn't have rich families backing us. All we had was experience, determination, and a belief that we could build something better than the companies we used to work for. In the beginning, it was just the two of us in a small warehouse with cracked concrete floors and flickering lights. We built desks out of plywood. We packed shipments ourselves. Some nights we slept on air mattresses in the office because we couldn't afford to go home and waste time. I handled operations, drivers, routes, schedules, warehouse systems. Leland handled investors and networking. It worked because we trusted each other. As the company grew, things started to change. We hired staff. We signed larger contracts. Money finally started coming in. But I noticed Leland becoming more distant. Meetings were happening without me. Conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. When I asked questions, he gave short answers. He said he was just stressed from expansion plans. I believed him. Last Tuesday, everything fell apart. He called an all-staff meeting on the warehouse floor. I thought we were announcing a new contract. Instead, he stood in front of everyone and said the company needed new direction. Then he said I was no longer part of that direction. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the security guard standing near the door. He told everyone that I had agreed to step away. That was a lie. I tried to speak, but he cut me off and said the decision was final. In front of employees I had trained, drivers I had hired, people who trusted me, I was told to pack my things. No warning. No private discussion. No respect. I walked back to my office in silence. My hands were shaking, but I refused to let anyone see me break. I packed my laptop, a framed photo of our first delivery truck, and a coffee mug with the company logo we designed together. That logo suddenly felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. When I stepped outside carrying that box, I felt something heavier than anger. It was betrayal. I had given years of my life to that place. I missed birthdays, holidays, and family dinners to make sure payroll cleared. And in less than 5 minutes, he erased me. As I drove away, one thought kept repeating in my mind. This wasn't sudden. He had been planning this. That night, I started looking through old emails and documents on my personal drive. If he thought I would just disappear quietly, he didn't understand me at all. When I got home that night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, going through every document I had saved over the years. I always kept copies of important agreements and early drafts, mostly out of habit. Back when we started, we promised each other we would both stay equal partners, no matter what happened. As I searched through the files, I found something that made my stomach drop. There were updated company documents filed months ago, changes I had never approved. My ownership percentage had been reduced. The language was written in a way that made it look legal and clean, but the timing was suspicious. It was tied to a supposed emergency expansion vote. I never agreed to that. The more I read, the clearer it became. Leland hadn't acted suddenly at that meeting. He had been preparing this move for months. He slowly shifted power away from me, piece by piece, while smiling in my face and calling me his partner. I felt foolish for not seeing it sooner. Every late meeting he forgot to invite me to. Every document he said he would handle. Every time he said, "Trust me, I've got this." Trust was the weapon he used against me. But then I remembered something important. In the very first version of our operating agreement, the one drafted when it was just the two of us and a small legal team, there was a protection clause. It was meant to prevent one founder from forcing the other out unfairly. I pulled up that original document. There it was. If one founding partner was removed without full mutual consent, certain major contracts required dual approval for a limited period. It was designed to protect the company from internal power grabs. And right now, the company was in the middle of a massive expansion deal. A deal Leland had already announced publicly to employees and investors. If my removal was not properly executed under the original agreement, that contract could be paused. My heart started beating faster, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. This wasn't about hurting him. It was about protecting what was right. The next morning, I called Avery Sloan, the attorney who helped us file our earliest paperwork. Avery was quiet, careful, and detail-focused. I explained everything: the public firing, the ownership change, the documents I found. There was a long pause on the phone. Then Avery said something that changed everything. If what you're saying is accurate, this isn't clean. This triggers a compliance review. Within hours, a formal notice was sent regarding a governance dispute. That automatically froze the pending expansion contract until everything could be verified. I didn't call investors. I didn't make threats. I simply followed procedure. By midday, I started receiving calls, not from Leland but from people connected to the company. Bank representatives, legal assistants, board members. The expansion credit line was temporarily paused. Payroll funding was under review. Investors were asking questions. And for the first time since being escorted out of my own company, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady. Leland had believed he could quietly push me out and move forward without consequences. He thought removing me would make everything smoother. But he forgot something simple. When you build something with someone from the ground up, the foundation still carries both names. By the next morning, the situation had escalated faster than I expected. The main investor, Trent Calhoun, requested an emergency board meeting. Trent wasn't emotional. He was calculated and calm. He had invested because he believed in stability and leadership. Now he was hearing words like governance dispute and founder removal conflict. That wasn't the image of a stable company. Leland finally called me around noon. I let it ring twice before answering. His voice was different. No confidence. No charm. He asked me what I had done. I told him the truth. I didn't attack him. I didn't threaten him. I simply informed him that the original agreement required review before major contracts could move forward. There was silence on the line. Then he accused me of trying to sabotage the company. That hurt more than the firing. I reminded him that I had spent 3 years protecting that company. If anyone had sabotaged it, it wasn't me. He hung up. Later that day, I learned what happened at the board meeting. The documents reducing my ownership were reviewed closely. The timing of the changes, right before a major expansion deal, raised serious concerns. Investors began questioning why transparency had been avoided. When leadership hides things, money walks away. By evening, the bank froze the expansion credit line completely until the dispute was resolved. Without that funding, the warehouse expansion couldn't proceed. Equipment orders were paused. Vendor agreements were suspended. Inside the company, pressure was building. Managers didn't know what to tell employees. Drivers were hearing rumors about delayed payments. The confidence that once filled that warehouse started turning into uncertainty. All of this happened within 24 hours of my firing. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just watched quietly as the consequences unfolded. That night, Leland called again. This time there was no anger in his voice. Only panic. He said the board was reconsidering their support. He said investors were nervous. He asked if I would temporarily approve the expansion contract so the review could be settled quietly afterward. Quietly. Just like he had tried to remove me quietly. For a moment, I thought about the employees, the people who had trusted us both. They didn't deserve instability. But then I remembered something important. Instability didn't begin with me defending myself. It began the moment he chose control over partnership. I told him I couldn't help him fix something he intentionally broke. He tried to argue, saying we could work it out later. But later had already come and gone when he stood in front of everyone and erased me. When I ended the call, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because he was struggling. Not because the company was shaking. But because I finally understood something clearly. You can't betray someone who helped build your foundation and expect the structure to stand strong. The next morning, investors officially withdrew their expansion funding. Within a single day of firing me, Leland had lost the deal he was betting everything on. Once the funding was withdrawn, everything began to fall apart quickly. Without the expansion money, the company couldn't cover the costs it had already committed to. Equipment leases were canceled. A new warehouse contract went into default. Vendors started demanding payment up front instead of offering credit. The confidence that once surrounded the company disappeared almost overnight. Employees sensed it. Managers held closed-door meetings. Drivers began asking if payroll would be delayed. The same warehouse floor where I had been publicly dismissed was now filled with tension and uncertainty. Leland tried to control the damage. He told staff it was a temporary financial review. He said everything was under control. But investors were no longer backing his decisions. The board questioned his judgment. Trust had been broken at the highest level. Within weeks, the company filed for restructuring. I never stepped back into that building. People assumed I would feel satisfied. Some even told me it was perfect revenge. But honestly, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like watching something I helped create crumble because one person chose ego over loyalty. Leland sent one final message asking if we could meet. I agreed to a short meeting in a neutral office space. When he walked in, he looked exhausted. The expensive suits were gone. The confidence was gone too. He said he never meant for things to spiral like this. He claimed he thought removing me would make him look stronger to investors. He believed control meant leadership. He was wrong. He asked if there was any way we could rebuild together. He said the company still had potential. I looked at him and realized something important. Even if the business could be repaired, the trust could not. And without trust, partnership is just paperwork. I told him I wish things had been different. But I wouldn't go back. A few former employees reached out to me privately after everything collapsed. They said they always knew I handled the real operations. They said they left because they didn't believe in how things were done. 6 months later, I started again. This time, I built slower. Carefully. No rushed expansion. No hidden changes in ownership. Everything transparent. Everything documented clearly. Some of the same drivers who once worked under me joined the new company. Not because I promised quick growth, but because they trusted me. That's something money can't buy. Looking back, losing my position that day felt like the worst betrayal of my life. But it forced the truth into the open. It revealed character. It showed who valued power and who valued integrity. He thought firing me would secure his future. Instead, it exposed the cracks he created. And I learned something I'll never forget. You can lose a title overnight. You can lose a company in a day. But if you keep your integrity, you never truly lose everything.